I want to show you today one of the ways in which I draw portraits, using just lines, nothing else. In this video, I'm going to share with you exactly how I'm creating this drawing, the techniques that I'm using, my thought process, and just the choices of lines that I make. The reference image that you see here was taken from Sketch Daily, a website where you can select the time that you want to draw and whether you want a human figure and if it's full body or just one certain body part or a portrait or an animal or a plant. So during this day I was just practicing line drawing and have done a few portraits, and then as I found this one, for some reason I just began to want to do a more elaborate portrait. Because this was just practice, I did not draw a base layer. So usually if I'm going for something quite realistic, or if I'm wanting the result to be very similar to the reference, I would either draw with a pencil first to get the anatomy of the face right, or if I'm drawing on Procreate, then I would draw a simple layer first with the basic shapes of the face to get the position of the eyes right, the mouth and the nose, and then on a next layer on top I would start doing the lines that I'm doing here. And the way I'm doing it here is quite a bit more risky, but still a great practice, and eventually you will see how the face does develop some shape and begins to have a lot more resemblance to the reference picture. So I'm keeping the reference picture here so that you can constantly compare what I'm doing and how the original photo looks, and why I'm choosing to put more lines in certain places and less in others. You can see how I'm not focusing so much on the details themselves. I am first building the major shapes and trying to get the position of the eyes and the eyebrows and the nose, everything in comparison to each other to look quite natural and realistic. And the hair looks quite crazy here right now, but it's more just for me to have an idea of the shape. So in this case, the way that I'm using the lines is building the shadows. You can see that the places where there is a shadow in the reference picture, that's where I make the biggest amount of lines, and I just build them until it creates different shades and different depths to the drawing. Initially, I began to do this in a one-line style, so I would not lift my hand off the paper and just keep going in quite a fast pace so that it's very intuitive, and I just do without thinking too much, without over-analyzing, and just really feeling while constantly comparing my drawing with the reference. So I'm keeping a very, very close eye to the reference and constantly checking in. And then later you can notice how I begin to lift my hand off the paper, because now it's not as important to have continuous lines because of just how many lines there are. So if I do lift my hand off and go to another place where I feel like I need to work on, you won't really notice that the lines are not continuous, because it will still look like a one-line drawing. Of course, if the intention is to do a full one-line drawing, then that is also possible, but my intention here was not really to do that. I've definitely done my fair share of one-line drawings when I was studying in university, and we would do these exercises, and that's more for practice. And here I did not have that intention. My intention was more to explore quite a realistic approach with this very chaotic line style. Now I'm going into the more detailed part, and with more precision and attention, I'm building the nose and the lips and the eyes, giving the smaller details. And please excuse the dogs in the background. I'm living right now in a house that doesn't really have complete walls, so I hear everything that is happening around, and I am in Guatemala, so there's quite a lot of dogs around. You can see how I'm building the hair a lot more, and the different shades in the face and in the neck, and building not perspective but just depth to the portrait, and it's really becoming a lot more realistic, and you can see resemblance to her face. Because I did not make a first layer and had to just kind of gamble with the places where the eyes were and the nose, I personally feel that the eye on the left is a bit too dark, and I did not leave the white space for the inner part of the eye, so I just had to make everything a little bit darker so that it looks like it's in shadow. So I think that's one of the things that I felt like I wish I could have given a bit more attention to, so that it stood out a little bit more, because now it looks blackened out. But to compensate, I just made everything a little bit darker around the eyes, also in the other eye, so that it still makes sense and looks proportional and realistic, even though it's not fully matching the reference image. And I feel that something similar happened with the lips as well. They look quite a bit larger than in the reference photo, and also the face itself is a bit more rounded. And because I made the lips darker right from the start, I did not allow as much space for the lighter part of the bottom lip that creates this highlight. And that feels okay to me, because the face still looks like a actual human face. So even though it's not exactly like the reference photo, I feel like I captured the proportions quite well. With the hair, I am basically just following the main shapes. If you squint your eyes and look at her hair, there's parts which have darker areas, almost black, and some are much lighter. So I'm not following it exactly, but I am recreating really dark areas and leaving others much lighter. And I really enjoy this type of drawing because it's very intuitive, it's quick, it's just really enjoyable to use the hand in this way. And up close, it's quite abstract, there's so much happening, but then as you look at the drawing from a distance, you can see a lot more realistic features. I definitely have a sense that this type of drawing is easier for people who already have some experience with anatomy and portrait drawing, because if you've never drawn faces and you go for this technique especially without creating a baseline where you first make a sketch of the full face, then it's going to be really hard and it's probably going to look quite distorted and disproportional, which is okay. But if you're a beginner and you want to try this style, then I would recommend that you first, with a pencil or if you're on an iPad, draw a base layer and maybe even draw on top of the reference picture. So tracing it to have the proportions of the face right, and then playing with the lines afterwards and practicing that technique. And this is one of the ways of drawing with lines. There's of course so many different ways of making line art. I would call this a more chaotic style. And I don't draw like this much lately because I personally don't think that this works very well as a tattoo design. Although I really love drawing like this, I have accommodated my style to suit more the tattoo requirements. Okay, so this is the finished piece. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed this process, and if you have any questions, let me know. I am happy to hear from you.